You know that feeling? After a period of really intense stress, everything finally goes quiet. But instead of feeling relieved, you just feel adrift? Today, we're going to explore a powerful framework for rebuilding your mind, all based on something called the architecture of cognitive reconstruction. If you've ever wanted to fundamentally change how you think, well, this is for you.
And that brings us to this huge central question. Once the internal noise dies down and the chaos finally calms, what's next? What's going to organize your thoughts and give them some kind of direction again? It's a really profound question, and it's the starting point for this entire journey.
For a lot of people, this is square one. You're stable, but you're directionless. The big crisis is over, the mental static has quieted down, but there's no clear, organizing principle. It's kind of like being on a boat without a rudder. Sure, you're floating, but you're not actually going anywhere.
And here we hit a really critical distinction. Stability is essential, absolutely, but it's only the foundation. Without a deliberate, active process of rebuilding, you risk getting stuck in this passive state of recovery, feeling totally lost even after the storm has passed.
So, what's the first active step you can take? Well, surprisingly, it's not to look inward. That can just be overwhelming. Instead, the whole process kicks off by looking outward, through research. It's all about finding an anchor that's outside of your own head.
The idea of an external anchor is so powerful. I mean, think about it. When your internal world feels like pure chaos, you can actually borrow structure from the outside. By researching things like stress or cognition, you start to see that your personal experience isn't some isolated, weird event. It's part of a larger, understandable pattern.
And look at the practical benefits here. Research completely shifts your perspective. Your suffering is no longer some personal defect. It's a mechanism you can understand. That endless looping, that rumination, gets replaced with actual explanation. And that, of course, dramatically reduces self-blame and lets you step back and observe your own mind from a distance. This is such a crucial insight. You don't have to feel better to start thinking better. In fact, this whole process suggests it's the other way around. Gaining that objective understanding, that's the necessary first step that makes real healing even possible.
Okay, so let's build on that. Once you have some external understanding, the next step is to create some internal order. And the most powerful tool for this isn't just thinking more, it's writing.
Now, this is a game-changing way to look at it. We usually think of writing as a way to vent, right? To get our emotions out. But here, its main job is organizational. Think of it like a technology for structuring your mind, for imposing logic on what would otherwise just be a tangled mess of thoughts.
I love this quote. It just perfectly captures why writing is so effective. All those hazy, looping anxieties, those half-formed fears, they literally can't survive the act of being articulated. The second you force a thought into a clear sentence, you have to really look at it, and that alone can be enough to totally dismantle its power.
Let's get into the mechanics here. Writing forces a linear structure, a beginning, middle, and end, onto your chaotic thoughts. It gets the anxiety out of your head and onto the page, where it loses its momentum. All of a sudden, your own contradictions become visible. And, so importantly, it imposes limits. A page has an end, a sentence has a period. And these boundaries are what help you get back a sense of control.
Okay, so this brings us to a critical choice point. Once you've restored some order, you're faced with a constant decision. Are you going to engage in deep, focused thinking? Or are you going to reach for the easy, fragmented hit of distraction?
This comparison makes the stakes so incredibly clear. On one side, you've got long-form thinking. Reading books, writing essays. It demands patience, for sure, but it builds real depth and is motivated by a search for meaning. On the other side, you've got the quick hits of short-form content. It's easy, it's distracting, but it totally fragments your attention and keeps you chasing novelty and a false sense of urgency.
Every single time you choose that long-form engagement, you're basically doing a rep for your brain. You are actively retraining your attention, teaching it to stay with complex ideas. It's like cognitive weight training for your focus and your mental resilience.
So what happens after all this work? After the research, the writing, the deliberate choice for depth? Well, something pretty remarkable starts to emerge, a stable, internal framework for making decisions. You find your internal compass.
And this is such a key point. Having an internal compass doesn't mean life suddenly gets easy. What it means is that when you do face challenges, you have a core set of principles that holds you together. You have a coherent center that prevents you from just disintegrating.
This leads to a whole new understanding of what agency really is. It's not just about feeling confident. It's about becoming the author of your own thoughts. It's the active process of examining your beliefs and clarifying what you really stand for, all through that powerful tool of writing.
So let's just recap the whole journey. It starts with grounding, using that external research to understand your own experience. Next up is ordering, using the structure of writing to create some real coherence out of chaos. Then comes the active part, choosing, where you intentionally pick depth over distraction to retrain your attention. And finally, all of this hard work leads to orienting, where you develop this durable internal compass built from your own clarified principles.
The outcome here represents a really fundamental shift. Before, maybe just getting through the day felt like an act of endurance that used up all your energy. But this new, structured way of thinking, it's a sustainable practice that actually builds your mental capacity instead of draining it.
And here we see the ultimate purpose of it all. This process of rebuilding your mind, it's not about chasing some external ambition. It's about achieving an internal state of alignment, where your thoughts, your principles, and your actions are all in harmony.
So we'll end with this thought. We've seen how thinking can be transformed from this source of stress into a sustainable, capacity-building practice. The final question, then, is a really personal one. What would that kind of deep alignment, what would that truly look like for you?